Hi everyone, it's nice to be here. I just drove back down yesterday from Brisbane, and I think it's very important to have that collaboration within states. So I'm here to learn what's happening in New South Wales and share what we're doing up north. So I arrived in Australia just 3 years ago. When I arrived, I landed in the landfill state of Australia. That was pretty a shock for me to see how waste is managed or not managed in Queensland. This picture represents a lot to me. So first of all, when I arrived, I started campaigning for plastic bags, and I drafted the law to ban plastic bags with the ex-Minister of the Environment, Stephen Miles. For 2 years we worked on that, and finally this July we're going to have the law implemented in Queensland, which New South Wales is not still acting on it, and that was one of my questions for the Minister, but we ran out of time. However, behind this picture there's much more to me. I've been in the environmental movement for 12 years, and that's all what the environmental movement showed to you. A nice turtle, a plastic bag, we don't want our waste going to the beaches, going to the ocean. But there's much more represented by that plastic bag that is not spoken about. Why that plastic bag arrived there in first place? What's the consumption in terms of footprint just to produce that plastic bag? Well, we are still in this traditional economic model where, we have resources, we manufacture, we produce, we package, we transport, and then we finally find stuff in our shops, we buy them, and finally we dispose of them. But what we often forget is this part. In all this cycle, with innovation and with environmental education, we started talking about renewable energy or electric transport. In Europe, for example, we are trying to put the trucks on trains and all this sustainability thing. What is missing in the grow economic paradigm is the retail section. No one talks about reducing consumption, reducing GDP, or how we measure actually our economic success. Our economic success today is still based on GDP. Australia, between 1997 and 2012, generated the waste increase by 145%. But population just increased by 22%. So what's that different? What's missing in the conversation here? Well, that consumption culture that we still don't speak about it, and especially in the political sector. When I started Brisbane 2 Library, we started collecting tools, and I will present the projects later. But I've been in landfill station, and I collected tools that have never been opened before going to landfill. That is the waste that we are talking about. It's not the end of the apple that we throw away or a pair of shoes that we wear for 10 years. So there's a lot of data around, but they're not very specific. For example, some data in the book, What's Mine is Yours, says that a drill in the life cycle of a drill is used just for 12 minutes. On this paper, the average use of a drill is just 45 hours in 15 years. So as you can see, the unused capacity is almost of 300 hours. Lawnmower, same thing, and so on. The interesting thing is that I never have enough data to present because our universities, our society is not researching on the unused or underused tools item that our society is producing. We consider waste as end of cycle, while in fact we produce and consume so much that waste is not anymore that end of cycle. It becomes waste much earlier in the stage of our items. So we live in a linear economy where we make, we use, and we dispose. You all are aware of that. Recycling economy, it's part of the solution. We still need to recycle some materials. Innovation somehow is helping toward that. But for me, it's important to go through a real circular economy. And why I called my presentation a real sharing economy, a real circular economy, is that now the word circular economy is even too much abused in the waste sector or in in the sector in general, because it's always a circular economy in that growth paradigm. So we can reuse as much as we want, but and our technology can be efficient as much as we want. But if consumption keeps growing, we will never win that battle. We can have, the utopia of improving. We can have political or industry roles that make us feel better about doing it. But if we don't speak about reducing consumption and measuring our economy differently, that won't work. So the interesting thing is that I published a book chapter and a paper, all this stuff that no one reads really. And we are somehow aware that consumption is a problem, especially in the sector. And so we talk about ethical consumption. But it's really interesting that in the literature, no one defines humans and people in this current economic system with another word than consumers. We can be ethical consumers, but that means that when we wake up in the morning, we are still led to consume. Ethically or not, we're always in this growth paradigm. Anyway, because no one really read these things, I thought I need to start something in Brisbane to work with the community in a grassroots way and keep that research about new system or redefining the economy aside. And so I created more than a year ago the Brisbane Tool Library. Very simple concept. It's like a book library, but for hand tools, power tools, camping, and sport equipment. So our goals are pretty straight. We want to, of course, create a sustainable society, decreasing consumption and waste. We mention always consumption in our presentation or in our statement. This is just me and our manager, Anna, that we went to save literally with our hands some tools from landfill. Our other goal is to provide access over ownership. One, because sometimes it can be too costly to access these things. We want also to give access to low-income people. And secondly, well, maybe I'm a bit younger than you, but the younger generation want access. We don't want to accumulate things. What access mean? So we have a software. This is just a screenshot, but basically if you go on our website, brisbanetoollibrary.org, in the section inventory, you can become a member, and then you can borrow any of our 300 and plus tools. So this is just a screenshot. As I said, we have power tools. We can see some saws there. We have camping and sport equipment. You just pre-book it, or you just walk in as a normal book library, borrow it, bring it home, cut your grass, repair, do your home renovation, and bring it back, and maybe borrow something else. You can borrow for 7 days, up to 4 tools at each time, and if you don't finish within that week, as a normal book library, you log in with your account, and you can renew it for 1 more week. But we don't just give access. So this is what we've been doing a bit for the last year. Basically, we collected tools from the community and from some removal companies that they are sponsoring us. We clean them, we test and tag them, and then we add them in our inventory. We also maintain them for you. This is another value, because when we have all this stuff in our shed, etc., we don't realize how much energy and time that takes to maintain this tool. So we test and tag them for you, we clean them, we repair them if necessary, and then they look like this on our software, ready to be used. Finally, we have a growing population everywhere. Brisbane is suffering, or just a normal impact of the evolution of the society. We don't want any more this, and we can't even afford just to buy bigger houses to stock more things. With the growing rise of apartments in Brisbane, we store stuff for people. Why people should have all the camping stuff that they use once per month or less stocked in their house? They can just access it in perfect condition when they want. What we've been doing for all these years, a bit of creating that community around us. We did a lot of public speaking. You can see in the middle our volunteers working on each tool at a time. We did events showing and presenting the bigger vision of creating a local economy and a sharing economy. A bit the business model. So at the beginning, we won some funds from the University of Queensland as a startup. So with that, we paid all our first cost. Based on a sharing economy, people just need to buy a membership, and then they can access every tool. So we have concession membership, standard, business and not-for-profit organization. And we are trying to get more businesses on board so that we can keep low the price for individuals. You are probably thinking that hiring company already exists, and I'm not inventing anything new here. Well, today, these are our updated data. If you need an edge trimmer in Brisbane, it might cost you $79 per day. Well, we already bad pictures, but we have them. And if you also need a drill or a rotary hammer drill, it might cost you $100 per day. Well, we already have them too. So with the same membership, you can have access to all of these items. We have some of our partners. I would just highlight the first two at the top because we're always looking also here in New South Wales for removal companies, recycling centers to partner with us. Or what we need is basically, well, we can of course discuss the details, but just new stuff coming to us in good conditions. Today we have more than 300 tools. We have 30 volunteers, and an outcome that I didn't expect is once an Australian came into a meeting and said, I can hear so many different accents. So in the 30 volunteers, we have 13 different nationalities that contributed. Because all these people, and that was, again, an outcome that we didn't expect. All these people just want meaningful job, meaningful activity. They are high-skilled migrants or even locals, and they struggle to find meaningful jobs. So the job part is very important to us. So we spent a year just collecting things and cleaning them and going through all the bureaucracy and the law, which is still very great because a sharing economy is not very well defined. We couldn't understand how many times we had to test and tag and everything because we are in none of the category that exists. But we went through all this stuff. So we basically launched open just 2 months ago. We didn't do the official opening, but we have a space in West End in Brisbane. We have 60 users and 4 not-for-profit organizations. The logo that you can see in there green is a social enterprise called the Mini Farm Project. They grow food in Brisbane in gardens that have been donated for homeless. And now they do it with our tools. So basically the unused tool that the community gave us now are used to grow food for homeless. And these not-for-profit organizations, they don't need any more to buy every time the tools for particular volunteering day or other events. Finally, we don't need a drill, we just need a hole in the wall, right? So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really interested in having maybe your feedbacks or questions at the end of the session. And I'm Sabrina. Thank you.